Hello, this is my first video response for a literature circle reading, the first 62 pages of The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. I noticed a few things right in the first section of this book, particularly the need to help us understand Josh's identity as a basketball player and how he's very similar to his father, but he mentions that he feels like he really needs his own voice. On page 15, he says, "I knew one day I'd need my own wings to fly." So that tells me that he's, really proud of his roots, but he also wants to stand out apart and not just be compared to his dad or to his twin brother, Jordan. Something that I noticed stylistically is that when he was playing in a game or there was some action happening regarding basketball, that the structure of the words on the page and the more kind of rhyming, almost like like lyrics to a song, were being played, whereas when he's giving that kind of background information or letting us know more about the family, it just sort of took more of a poetic written verse to it as opposed to more lyrical, like you could put music to some of those action sequences with the basketball. I think also you learn pretty quickly about how Josh kind of sees himself as this great basketball player, but there's layers to his family and to the complexities of his family, particularly the sort of secret that the boys discover about his father and what may have ended his basketball career. I think in terms of what we've talked about so far in the course, even though we've only had one class session, it's important that kids can see themselves in the literature. And to a student, particularly an African American student, they might be able to look at this and find this to be a mirror where they see themselves reflected back in the character. But I think it also appeals to, people who feel like they are being compared to a family member, their father, mother, or, the intricacies of having a twin. And of course, the sort of coming of age because they're in middle school and they're starting to go through puberty and they're starting to discover girls, and that seems like that's going to come up later, especially with Jordan, which already kind of seems like it's bothering Josh. And is that going to change how he feels, especially because he's so caught up in this identity of being this ball player. Then his brother cuts off his hair and that sort of changes, but then some of the girls sort of start to notice him. So I think there's a lot of things that kids that are middle school, high school, even maybe late elementary school could really relate to. Something that this reminded me of, or I connected with, is this book, The Right Thing, which is by Kwame Alexander, who wrote The Crossover. And this is his professional book for teachers, where he talks about the importance of poetry as a genre and as a form of writing. And he also goes through steps that you can take with your students to publish their writing, to publish their poetry. I think novels that are written in verse sometimes are not given as much credit or given as much, accolades, I suppose, as maybe other novels, because I guess maybe they're not long enough. Do they really get into things? But I think that one of the beautiful things about poetry is that it really helps you see inside a person's soul. Just in these first few pages that we read, I've got such a sense of Josh as a character and how he sees himself, what things are important to him, how he feels when he's playing basketball. So there's a lot of depth that you get just in the beginning pieces that I'm not sure you could get with a more traditional prose where it's, chapters and things like that. I think those short little vignettes also help to keep the story moving along. And I think sometimes this is a genre that is really great for students who might be either struggling readers or reluctant readers who just don't really feel like they've connected, because it's less intimidating than pages upon pages of text. And the layout of the little short chapters, the way that, when it talks about like falling down, the words are written vertically, that those things would appeal to students. And then that's something that they could then transfer into their own writing and kind of say, well, Kwame Alexander writes like this, so perhaps that's something that I can write, in that same style. And it really helps them to see themselves reflected, but also see possibilities for themselves in their own application, that maybe this is a way that they could be writing, and this is something that they could be experimenting with. I think that's something that's really great about authors like Kwame Alexander, like Jason Reynolds, who writes books in verse as well, that they're really appealing and that they really get into this deeper range of emotions with the characters that you don't necessarily get with a novel that's written in prose, that this kind of lyrical, poetic style is appealing to, a variety of learning styles, a variety of students. So I really enjoyed these first few pages, and I look forward to seeing, how the story unfolds and what connections we can make as we read the next section. Thanks.